I'd like to talk about guilt within grief. But before we delve into that, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're here for the first time, then welcome aboard. So guilt within grief. Now, there's a couple of perspectives I'd like to look at this from. Or not so much perspectives, but different kinds of guilt within grief. So the first guilt, which is probably what you're thinking of, that I'm going to talk about, is this, that when we lose someone, we sometimes go through a stage of guilt. And that can be, if only I had done this, if only I had done that, if only I had been with her when this happened, if only I had stopped, stopped her from doing this, stopped him from doing this, did that, you could sort of go on and on and on. And that guilt is pretty consuming, sort of, it's quite damaging, and it's quite, it's not helpful in any way, because there's nothing that we can do about it. And if we really, really think about some of the things that we are blaming ourselves for and feeling guilty about, most of it, probably just about all of it, wasn't anything in our control. It wasn't anything that we could have done differently or done to avoid it, or, it just wasn't our fault. It just was. Okay. So when we talk about the 5 stages of grief, we talk about, one of the stages is acceptance. And when we accept what's happened, and we accept that we have lost our loved one, some of that guilt is probably processed, and we've got to a point where we are possibly not blaming ourselves. We might still do that, because as we know, the different stages of grief, it's not linear, and you can come backwards and forwards, and we've talked about that. It's more like a continuum than an actual, as I say, not stages in any kind of uniform way, or everyone sort of feels the same way and goes through the stages in the same way. It's not like that. Everyone has their own unique way. So as we are processing some of the symptoms of grief, we might feel that, that guilt is hopefully not quite as intense. The guilt that I'm really referring to in this particular video is more about the guilt we sometimes feel about ourselves, sort of, when it comes to smiling or laughing or feeling any kind of joy after our loss. And, when I'm counselling, supporting, befriending women who have experienced child loss, which is mainly what I do, so many times women say to me, I feel guilty when I smile. I feel guilty when I laugh. I start laughing and I think, what am I doing? What am I doing? I mustn't laugh. But the thing is that we are such exceptional creatures, human beings. We have the ability to laugh, to cry, to feel joy, to feel sorrow, quite simultaneously, quite, sort of at the same time. We can sort of hold these dualities, at the same time. We can do that. And to understand that we can do that is helpful. Because we can cry through we can sort of smile through our tears, and that's okay. Sometimes, we can be in a situation where we feel judged by others. And if we're really, really honest, is that one of the reasons why we might be feeling guilty? It might not just be how we feel ourselves. It might be how others make us feel, or that we feel that we're being judged by others, or that others will judge us if we're smiling or laughing or chatting. And that's something that we need to try and overcome that, because we are never going to please everyone, and we need to be sure about, we need to sort of think about that. We can't behave in a certain way that's going to please others, because we're never actually going to please everyone all the time. We know that. So we need to think about ourselves. What do I need? What do I need? Yeah. Just because I'm like smiling and laughing and, and talking and chatting, doesn't mean to say I've forgotten the person I've lost. It doesn't mean that. We know that, don't we? We know that. Just because the clouds come in front of the sun doesn't mean to say the sun is no longer there. It's still there, but we just can't see it. And it's similar to how our emotions are. Just because we're not wearing our emotions and our heart on our sleeve, is something that people say, doesn't mean to say that, all those outwardly emotions, doesn't mean to say that we are, now not feeling, or not, we've got over it. It doesn't mean that at all. What it is our grief, reflects. So if we think about it, our love for the person that we've lost before we lost them was outward, wasn't it? It was outward in how we interacted with that person, how we hugged them, how we loved them, how things that we did with them, sharing a meal together or watching a movie together, all these things that we did to interact. Then suddenly it becomes, an inward love, doesn't it? An inward thing, we're sort of, it's gone to the memories of those times that we had with that person and how much that person still means to us. And it's rediscovering a new relationship with that person, because we can't have the relationship that we had before we lost that person. Yeah. So we need to establish that. So when it comes to the guilt, it's having an understanding that we are not going to please everyone. We are not going to live our lives in a way that, others see it, because they're not living our life. They're not grieving our grief. They might be grieving their own grief, but they're not grieving ours, certainly. So no one can judge anybody else and how they're grieving and how they look and how they seem and how they dress and how they behave. Who are we to judge? That person knows what they're experiencing or what they've lost or what they're feeling. It's unique to them. So guilt is something that we do feel sometimes, but it's something that we should be mindful about. Are we, sort of check in on ourselves? Are we feeling guilt? And if we are, where does that stem from? And, people do say, well, would your, people say to me, would your son want you to, if I'm crying or if I'm upset, people sort of say, and they're trying to be helpful, but they say things like, such as, oh, but would your son want you to be, in pain, and your son wouldn't want to see you, he wouldn't want to see you crying. He wouldn't. No, probably not. But the thing is that, I'm human and I have to go through these emotions. So it's the same as crying. I need to cry sometimes. I need to laugh sometimes. I look sad sometimes. Sometimes I need to smile. And that is just me being human. It doesn't mean that I, love my son any less, or I've forgotten, or I've got over. It doesn't mean any of that. What it means is I'm functioning with my son. Because my son is my partner in crime, actually. And he's always here. He's always with me. He never leaves me for a second. His bedroom is my new office space. It's where I work from when I'm delivering mental health training online. I, do my counselling from there. His desk is my desk. His desk is my chair. I have all these things around me. I have all my things around me. It's where I sense him and I feel him most. And he is my, partner in crime, as they say. He's there, egging me on and, telling me to, giving me words of encouragement, because he's the silent partner, if you like, in this. I'm the face of it, doing the talking, but he's the one who's pulling all the strings. He absolutely is. So sometimes, yes, you can feel guilty, but do question that guilt. Where is it coming from? And if it's coming from societal, is it society? Is it your environment that's giving you that? Well, then, we maybe need to sort of think about that and think, well, just not going to please everyone, no matter what I do. So let's just please ourselves and do what's right for us. If we want to cry, cry. If we want to smile, smile. If we want to throw our head back and laugh, then do that. And if you want to sob, then do that. Don't feel guilty. We're just human. We have all these emotions, and we can have all sorts of things that come to the surface, but that doesn't necessarily mean what's on the surface is what's at the core. We know that, don't we? Those of us who are grieving know that. So let's be good to ourselves. Thank you for listening. If you found the content of this video helpful, please do comment, please do share, please do like, please subscribe. We need to build those numbers. Oh, and before I forget, we do have some of you who have subscribed to the channel. There's a few, but thank you so much for subscribing. I can't even say how much I appreciate it actually in words, but thank you is something that we can say. So thank you. I've not actually said that before, and I've thought about it a few times and thought, well, when I'm recording a video, I've actually forgotten to say thank you for those of you who have subscribed. And there is a few, but absolutely, we have to start from somewhere. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, look after your hearts and souls.